Hi, family. This is Christy. Welcome to the Bold Move Makers, where I empower you to lead boldly and show up in the world and be the change that you want to see. I was thinking today and just reflecting on where it is that we tend to give up our power. And most of the time, it's things that are outside of our control, or people or situations that we face throughout the day. And it always shows up in the form of people or lack or unfortunate circumstances that take our power and attention away from what's true. And the truth is that no matter where you are in the season of life, you have the power to control not what's happening to you, but how you allow it to affect you. Now, it's not something that everybody understands that they have the power to do, because most of us, and through life you'll learn that different journeys of different people, they have their own measure of problems, and nobody can escape them. But some people tend to like to wallow in their fears. They like to wallow in their negative thinking. They like to wallow in their circumstances because it gives them something to talk about. I mean, who wants to always be around somebody who's eternally positive? It doesn't seem like those types of people we attract. We attract the ones that are going through things just like us. And we're always, tending to find the situations that drive us to the negative, and we have to fight for the positive. We have to fight for our opportunity to really become something more. Where have you given up your power? What situation are you facing today? Whether it's a job layoff, whether it's a pending divorce, whether you've recently lost your lover or spouse, whether your children aren't acting the way that you raised them. Or maybe it's something even smaller. Maybe it's a voice that speaks negativity to you and tells you that you're not enough, or that you aren't going to make it, or that you aren't, successful enough. All of those voices that compete for our attention. And the truth is, you do have power. You are empowered to become something great, no matter what you are facing today. I want to encourage you with a few things that I do to overcome. Now, I'm highly creative. In life, I have been gifted with many talents, and it's a gift and a curse in some ways to be able to know that you are so good at so many things. And a lot of times it drew a lot of negative attention. Sometimes people try to compete. I just show up in life because I just love to create, and I'm not thinking about who it's going to impress, or deep down inside, of course, I want people to love what I do, but I just show up in the way that I am. I like fashion. I love to be able to style my clothing and sew something amazing, and I'm good at it. I'm able to paint pictures and make art and write and speak in ways that other people may see as something so amazing. But to me, a lot of times it's just, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. I evolve. I don't stay stagnant in some ways. And in other ways, I have stayed stagnant because I didn't change and shift. But I've been able to, over the years, reinvent myself, where that sometimes can cause others to dislike the ability for me to shift and change. But it hasn't come without its life's issues. People don't know I was widowed. I was raising my kids alone through much of my life, and I had to find the things that still brought me joy because of extended grief and anxiety and sleeplessness, and at some point hopelessness and despair. But I held on to hope. And that's one thing that never allowed me to sink so low that I couldn't find my way back up. The word says a righteous man gets back up. I had that foundation to say, I can't stay here. I never wanted to be there in the first place. And so I didn't want anything to keep me down. And it's an internal thing, something so deep within that it's not something I could say, oh, I just have to just die right now. It doesn't mean I didn't have those feelings, but it was always something that said, you got to get back up. You have kids that are looking at you. You have friends that are looking at you. You have family who loves you and wants the best for you. Now, I didn't always believe it. Honestly, sometimes I was angry, and sometimes I felt like nobody understood what I was going through. And I turned to things that weren't good for me, and I struggled with depression and anxiety, and I gave my power away. And then one day I spoke to God and I said, listen, I can't live like this anymore. This is a hell that I don't want to relive. And it took years for me to get to a place to where I could dig in deep enough within myself and pray that all of the things that were coming against me, the multiple things. And it's a story all into itself, like a drama that it's hard, right? Life is tough. It's not easy. And when people see you and they think that your life is all easy and you're beautiful and you're so charming and you look like you haven't been through anything, that's not because of me or because of you or anything that you've done. I know for a fact that the reason why I'm here and the reason why I'm still breathing is because God's not done. And if there's anything that I know, the one thing I know is that God's grace carries you further than willpower ever will. Because to be honest, I gave up many times. I gave up on myself. I gave up on those that I thought loved me. I carried around that feeling, but I knew that hope was the one thing that nobody could take away. Number two, I believed. I believed that I deserved to be able to have a life worth living. I didn't think all the time that life was beautiful. And sometimes I wake up and I still don't. And that's just a struggle, I think, of the human condition. But I believed. I believed in a power higher than myself. I watched other people around me that went through far less, that lost their lives or gave up over much, much less than what I had to go through. Now, I never wished bad on them and I never looked down on them because they didn't have that measure of grace or that extra oomph that gave them the ability to say, you know what, I'm not going to give up. But I realized that the grace and the power that I was given to get back up, to believe that it was possible, I'm able to share that now. And I don't think that if I had not seen how I was able to overcome wave after wave after wave of bad fortunes, of broken relationships, friendships that backstabbed me, and financial ruin. If I hadn't seen all of that, I wouldn't know what it feels like to believe that it's not going to be the end. And the last thing is trust. Trust in the power that is beyond this world. Now, you can trust in people, but people fail. You can trust in things, but things can be taken away. Money, here today, gone tomorrow. All those things are fleeting. When we put our power in maybe beauty, or we submit ourselves over to desires that aren't good for us, drugs, drinking, excessive gambling, too many friends and relationships that we put our hopes and dreams and power in, and when those things crumble and they fall, and they all will. There's only one thing left, and that's to trust in God. Now, maybe you don't believe in God, and listen, everybody goes through their journey. And there were times in which I wasn't sure if God would come through for me. But He's faithful. His truth was faithful. Losing multiple jobs, being laid off, hearing the stories of countless people all over that struggle and suffer, just like me, that had hopes that were dashed, that had people that they lost that they loved so dearly, that the marriages that they trusted in and that ended in betrayal, seeing people not be able to recover, seeing that, their children went to jail. What else? The list is endless of things, but trusting and knowing that it is not the end. I often think about the story of Joseph in the Word, and his story is so much like a lot of ours. He told his dreams to his brothers, and his brothers hated him for it, quite frankly. Just like sometimes you may share your dreams and people tell you, oh, that's good, or they dismiss it, and within yourself that you are meant for something great, whether you see it today or not. And honestly, sometimes it takes years for that thing to manifest. But you know what? They hated him. They hated him for the dream. They hated him all because he was graced and loved more than them. Maybe you feel that right now. Maybe you aren't loved because of who you are. And you're like, why don't people like me? I just want to be a good person. I just want to love and care for people. And you constantly find that there are those that they don't give what you give. There's two things I know. One, stop measuring people against who you were graced to be. God made you just like you are, and everybody else didn't get that gift to be amazing. Number two, they will see you in their own way, and you can't control how they see you. So stop trying to bend and mold to their agenda, because you will try all you can to show up and be amazing, and people will diminish you. They will try to make you small. They will try to humble you. And that humbling isn't that you're coming off prideful. It is you're showing up in your fullness, and people will try to make you feel less than so that they can feel greater than. But in Joseph's story, he got thrown into the pit. He got sold into slavery. But everywhere he went, God showed up for him and showed him that he was trusted and that he was loved no matter who turned their back. He went to Potiphar's house and became head of all the servants. He was trusted by Potiphar with all of his belongings. Potiphar's wife saw that he was amazing and fine and looked good, and she wanted a piece of him, and she lied on him because he refused to give in, because he knew God favored him and he didn't want to, go against his master. And in that moment, he was thrown into prison. He didn't deserve any of that. But Joseph had this dream. He was supposed to have an amazing future. But in all the things that were happening to him throughout his life, the pit, going to the jail, being thrown in prison with other real criminals that did bad things, and all he did was just serve God and want to do, the right thing. How many times has that happened to you? That you've tried to do the right thing and the wrong thing happened, and you blame yourself. Some things, yeah, we may mess up and we have to suffer the consequences of our own actions. But when we do nothing and the wrong thing happens, we can begin to doubt God. So when I said that trust and hope, it's hoping in the thing that you saw and trusting that God will get you there. And in Joseph's story, he's in the prison and he's still sharing. He's still in control. He's still being used. He's still, being trusted in prison. He was over all the prisoners because he had so much favor. The guards gave him favor and allowed him extra privileges. And he was still sharing, and seeing dreams for other people, reading their dreams and being able to be used by God to help them uncover and unpack some of the things that they were feeling in their spirit. And he shared a dream with a baker and with a cupbearer, and the baker lost his life just like he thought, but the cupbearer, he actually did, his dream came true, and he went back to the palace. And Joseph told him before he left, hey, remember me, don't forget me when you get back to where you're going. And guess what happened? Dude got out and forgot Joseph. How many times have people, it's like pull up those behind you when you rise? And how many times have you seen people rise and forget? They'll just forget. They'll get up there. They'll get favored with fortune. They will, finally make it and be on TV, say, Mama, I made it, and forget everybody that they were supposed to bring up with them. It happens. It happens. But one day, Pharaoh had a dream, and he was, so distraught because he couldn't figure out this dream, and all of the people in his court, none of them could interpret the dream. And so he was so distraught, and the cupbearer said, you know what? There's a guy in prison that told me, my dream, and he was true, and it came true. And the Pharaoh sent for Joseph. And in that moment, Joseph was in prison, and it had been 2 years since he had been forgotten. Imagine how he was feeling in that 2 years when things just weren't working out for him. And in that moment, he was sent for by the Pharaoh. He cleaned himself up and went, and the Pharaoh said, hey, I'm having this dream. I was told that you could help interpret the dream. And the one thing that he did is he said to the Pharaoh, it's not me. It's not me who's telling these dreams, who can see into these dreams. It's God. How many times are you taking credit? And we all do it. We all do it. We forget who is the person who gave us the dream in the first place, the one who showed it to us in the beginning. But you know what? He shared the truth of the dream and told the Pharaoh what was going to happen. There was going to be a famine in the land, and that he needed to store up for these years while there was still, abundance, so that they could make it through. And Pharaoh trusted him again. He was trusted to take over Pharaoh, and he became the top man in charge, second only to the Pharaoh, and was put in another position where he was able to be used by God. And he was pulled out of his situation into a position of prominence because he trusted. He trusted, he believed, and he never gave up hope. So if I could leave you with anything today, it's those 3 things. Don't give up. I don't know where you are. And listen, we're all going through a lot right now, not only in our personal lives, but in the world. There's a lot going on. But if you can remember those 3 things, I guarantee you that you'll show up boldly. You'll trust with reckless abandonment. And at the end of the day, you'll believe that it's going to be okay. All right, family? Let's do it together. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it is going to be worth it. I'm Christy, and I want you to know that you are so loved, and no matter where you are, one day at a time, one moment at a time, trust and believe. Talk to you later.